People of the world, welcome back to Send It Rising. The last episode, you may have heard me rant and rave. I'm getting to the point now with 600 YouTube downloads that I don't know, it's not a wall. I had this guest on the show who was really interesting who said boredom precedes mastery. And what he meant by that was, if you're just over it, if you've been doing it for so long that you kind of don't care anymore, um, that's a beautiful place to be because what actually ends up happening is your risk tolerance goes way up. I've noticed that the kind of content I've been making recently would have been way too scary, way too embarrassing, way too welcome into my heart, welcome into my soul kind of content. But I'm just bored of all the other stuff. I'm bored of covering Elon Musk's Twitter takeover. I don't care anymore. I'm bored of, oh, Facebook did this new update. Like I'll cover it every now and then, that's fine. But there's something else. And in this I don't want to say post pandemic, but it feels a little bit post pandemic world of everyone went online and started sharing everything all of the time. If you're feeling like, you know what, I have produced an enormous amount of content and it's not taking off in the way that I had hoped, all I'm saying to you is who cares? Start producing content that just is like, you know what, I'm gonna keep doing it. I'm just gonna keep doing it. I'm gonna be consistent. And maybe you might be a little frustrated in your content. Maybe you might be a little bit irritated and you start sharing that with folks. I've noticed that kind of content, people really resonate with it because they're bugged too. I made a YouTube short about how I had two different friends in 1 week tell me that they see my content and neither of them have ever liked it. And I called one of them out on it. I was like, dude, if like what, like you can't hit the like button, it is your thumb. Do you have some sort of thumb paralysis that I'm unaware of? Like, what is the deal? And people really like that because they feel the same way. They're like, why aren't my friends hitting the like button? It's ridiculous. So anyway, just wanted to start the show off with that little nugget. I'm so stoked to have a returning guest on the show. We had a great conversation last time, and this one is going to be amazing. Backstage, we had a really candid conversation about how we both think hourly rate is so stupid. Because if you think about it, if you hire an agency and they say, "Oh, we're $60 an hour," and then you go to another agency and they say they're $125 an hour, and you're like, "Oh, I'm going to go with the 60." They, they can make up those numbers, right? They can just say it costs twice as much time. And then this great point that Matt made was, would you rather have 2 oxen pulling a cart or 2,000 chickens? Do you want 9 unpaid interns working on your products, or do you want like LeBron James and Steph Curry? I mean, come on. Let's be real. So, without further ado, he's back. So glad to have him. It's Matthew Stibbe, ladies and gentlemen.
Well, I'm delighted to be back here. Yeah, here we are, two strong oxen pulling the cart.
Obviously. So you're killing it on multiple fronts. One of the things that we talked about backstage that I really liked was you're a climate positive employer, which I think is really fascinating. And you're also a living wage employer. So that means that you spend money to offset carbon for your staff. How does that work?
So we use a sort of general rule for each employee. We buy an average person in the UK, their average emissions for their travel, for their holidays, for their home, for their work life. So we buy that much carbon offset for every employee in the company. So we are effectively carbon neutralizing our workforce. We also buy offsets based on an estimate of what we do as a company. So company meetings and the fact that we're all sitting here using cloud computers and storage in the cloud and things like that. So all of those numbers are we think good estimates. We're being advised by a company. And we work with a business called Ecology. Ecology spelt with an I, not a Y at the end. Ecology.com. So they're using our money to buy scientifically verified carbon offsets and invest in carbon projects. So that's what being a climate positive employer is. The next step for us is this very exciting step to become carbon neutral. And there's a difference, because carbon neutral means we're actually measuring to some degree our output as a business. So we're going to be using some software to look at all our spending and judge where that money is going. And if we give, £500 a year to Microsoft for Office 365, that probably translates into this many tons of CO2. So we're going to be doing that later this year, and then that is a stepping stone to yet another milestone, which is ultimately to become net zero. So not only measuring accurately our carbon output and offsetting it, but actually measuring accurately all our greenhouse gas emissions, doing everything we can to reduce or eliminate them, and then investing in schemes to not only offset but actually absorb carbon, and effectively we will not be net across the whole of the business not emitting any CO2. That's probably a couple of years away, but carbon neutral we should get to this year. It's a really important journey, right? Because I'm speaking to you from London, and we had the highest temperature in England 2 weeks ago that we have ever had since, I don't know, the Jurassic era. And it got to 40 degrees centigrade, and you'll have to tell me what that is in
It's
Fahrenheit.
104, folks.
Right. It was really, really hot here for a couple of days. And that was 10% hotter than it has ever been in the UK before. The previous record was 36 degrees. So, we've got to do something about this. And this is our little effort. It's
Yeah,
important.
it is important. My aunt has been sending out these emails of things that my late grandfather wrote down and said. And I just read a letter from him, and it's so interesting to see what someone born in 1890, whatever, was concerned with. And he wrote down pollution, garbage, nuclear waste, and maybe one or two other things. I mean, climate change wasn't necessarily on the docket at that point, but those thoughts still were.
Mm.
So over 100 years ago, people were still, feeling that responsibility. And I would like for businesses to take what they're doing with this sort of effort and make it their marketing strategy. I just wish it was an effective one. And so
Well,
essentially what I'm saying,
if I
yeah, go ahead.
sorry.
Yeah.
Do you mean effective as a marketing strategy, or
Yeah.
effective as a strategy for climate
No,
change?
marketing.
Okay, well, let me tell you something, because
Yeah.
I'm doing it for genuinely uncynical reasons, because I deeply believe in this. But
Right.
it has marketing benefits for the agency, my business. One of which is, well, since we signed up with Ecology to use their services, they've now become a client of ours. So there's a
Okay.
nice
All right. Okay. Okay.
circularity
Okay. Okay.
there.
So
That
this
was
is
not the intended reason, but we have companies come to us because we're a B Corp, and they want to work with B Corps, or they want to work with climate positive, climate mindful companies. The other thing, and this is a tactic, but we have an API integration between our HubSpot instance and the Ecology system, so that when somebody downloads a white paper or fills in a form or comes to a webinar on our website, we plant a tree.
Yep.
And you can sign up for it, and it just goes straight through an API thing, and it's trees as a service, which I think is rather sweet and cute and techy. But
Yep.
also, it's on top of all the other carbon offsetting that we're doing. So it's genuinely positive for people who are actually signing up.
Yep.
Um, and so far, we've planted more than 1,000 trees since we became an Ecology customer for that.
Yep. I mean, I'm gonna
That's a
write it.
forest. That's like a hillside full of
Oh
trees,
yeah.
right?
I mean, have you heard of Acacia? It's a search engine that plants trees.
Um,
ECOSIA.
it rings a bell. It's a neat,
You
yeah.
can check it out. You can just put it on your radar. But um, if, here's my sort of naive hope. Because if the government has to step in and start taking drastic actions, forcing this sort of thing on, I would rather that not be the case, right? What I
Mm.
would rather is the people listening to this, uh, when we choose companies, wouldn't it be nice if, because that's what's going to happen. Just like this future vision of we put on the glasses and we walk around and we can see everyone's LinkedIn profile basically, right? You see someone's face and it pulls up their LinkedIn profile, pulls up their publicly available data. That's going to happen, right? We'll walk around and we'll be networking and we'll be able to see. And so that same sort of transparency is going to happen with companies when we
Mm.
search, because search will be just ridiculous, in 15, 20 years, where they'll have a rating. They'll have an ecology rating, and that will be um, a very important piece of the puzzle. There will be a whole swath of people who will not work with companies that don't have an ecological responsibility metric above a whatever. In the same
Mm.
way that Google reviews, I mean, are you going to really hire someone that has a 3 starting 3.6, 3 point? Probably not.
Well, reviews are a mixed bag in a world of anonymity. You disgruntled diners leaving bad restaurant reviews anonymously, or disgruntled employees leaving bad Glassdoor reviews. And I think there's a little bit of my hope. I mean, apart from wanting to do my bit and kind of clean up after myself, but my hope is actually by setting an example and hopefully contributing to a growing and raising consciousness,
Yeah.
we might actually influence public policy, because the risk is, you have this lovely idealistic vision that we're all going to choose ecological companies. The risk is actually, because the bad companies and bad actors can externalize the cost of pollution, they effectively can bill their great grandchildren, right? So
Mm.
basically what's going to happen. And they can bill people who live in hot countries who can't, escape the sun, and all the damages and risks will happen somewhere else. But my new gadget's cheaper, or my service is cheaper, or whatever. I don't care. My business, I don't have to bear these costs. Somebody else can be green for me. So what has to happen is, I think it has to sort of eventually come into. It has to be something that is incumbent on everyone. Otherwise, some people are paying the cost and other people are not. All government and all business, all government and all law is about deciding who pays ultimately. And at the moment, it's borne by do-gooders and the future and poor countries, and that's not right. It's not just.
Well, I agree with that. I just can see a Google results page, and I'm talking about, because here's the thing. So as much as large corporations bear a huge responsibility, I forget what number it is, but of the United States economy, it's over half is
Mhm.
small business. I mean, I want to say it's like 75. It's way up there. Of the economy is small and mid-sized businesses, right? Your attorney, a real estate agent, plumber, dentist, that makes up a huge, huge, huge amount. And if I go onto Google and they've got a little score that says how ecologically responsible they are, to me that is because they would instantly shift public consciousness, because right
Yes.
now you couldn't if you wanted to. Right? Let's say you're on Google and you wanted to know whether or not the dentist you're going to is carbon neutral. You're not even in the ballpark
Yeah.
of
And
beginning to understand.
And right now, there are not great standards for measuring this. I won't say you can make it up, but there's a lot of self-certification,
That's fair.
um, and that's a challenge. I mean, and even objective standards of sort of corporate goodness, like B Corp, are sort of being undermined by cynicism by companies who are signing up to them in part, and or they pay lip service to it, or they go through what is a difficult certification, and then they do something appalling, and everyone goes, oh, B Corp doesn't mean anything because it didn't stop this company doing this horrible thing. Well, B Corp isn't the police of good business. It's an audit standard, and I suspect there's going to be quite a lot of that as well. But so what's needed is some objective standards, and I agree, it would be lovely if you could look up a company on a validated objective website and go, yeah, yes, they're B Corp, yes, they're investors in people, yes, they're living wage employer, yes, they're carbon neutral, or yes, they're climate positive, and have it be reasonably valid. I had a really interesting example of this, actually, because I when we were discussing this whole thing internally in the business, trying to involve people in the process, there was quite a big assumption that the big companies that supply us with services, like Microsoft, because we use Microsoft 365 for our email, are absolutely have a terrible blemished ecological record. And when you actually go and look up what they are actually doing, a lot of these big companies are genuinely working very hard. I mean, like the carbon neutral data centers and things like that. And you turn around and go, well, they're doing that and we're not, so we probably need to catch up with them. But they don't. There's no way to validate that without going to their website and checking company by company. So I
It's
agree. Yeah, it would be
it's
fantastic
like
if you could Google it.
do you know the Dewey Decimal System? You remember that?
Yeah.
That's where we are now. We're in the Dewey Decimal System of ecological impact of companies. It's so cumbersome. Nobody does it. Nobody's looking. It's not easy. It's super inconvenient for a consumer to get any sort of sense of where a company is actually at. And it's ultimately a technological problem because if well, and a cultural one perhaps as well. I think that there is a lot of money in that. I think that the people who can figure that out, where they become popular for getting some sort of badge, and then the badge turns into a metric, and that metric just gets better and better and better. And I like the 5-star model, you know. So
Mm.
where do you fall on from 1 to 5 stars in regards to how much pollution you create? And then you could create metrics that are like based on companies in your industry. I think that would probably be the most reasonable because it would be unfair to do apples and orange comparison, like I'm literally a landscaper, versus, some like an oil and gas company. They're like, we'll never win this battle, right? But if you could compare across and the other thing too is like I like driving my car. I like a heated house. I enjoy electricity, right? So I'm not standing here saying, fossil fuel is the worst thing that had ever happened to humanity because I would be a complete hypocrite. I have 3 lights on right now and I'm on the internet, right? And that's being powered, my entire job. It's easy for me to sit here and go, "Oh, I'm, holier than thou because, I don't commute to work." And so that's good, right? I'm doing a little bit. All of my staff is remote. Okay, good. But I use a tremendous amount of air conditioning in this house, right? It's a big house, and so so that's my point. Is could we find a better way for when I'm ordering food from someone to know that they're doing a little bit to help?
Yeah. Well, it's interesting in the UK, restaurants have like a little 1 to 5 star food health safety
Oh
thing.
yeah,
I think they have a
yep.
similar thing in some cities in America, and they put it on their window, and you kind of go, "Well, I'm not going in there because they've got 2 out of 5. That's probably
That's exactly
cockroaches."
what I'm trying to say.
Yeah. So, and there's an interesting role for government intervention. It's not so much legislating as just setting a standard and allowing people to measure themselves. I think B Corp's a good place to start for a lot of this because there's more to corporate social responsibility, doing good, being good than um, CO2 offsets, although that's an important part of it. So I don't know in the US, but in the UK, we're starting to see quite a lot of advertising and product design with the B Corp logo on it, which I think
See,
is
you keep saying B
important.
Corp, and I don't know if I should be embarrassed, but I don't know what you're talking about. What's B Corp?
Okay, right. B Corp. Well, B Corp is this beacon of for companies that want to be a force for good but still want to be a business, right? So it's not for charities. It's not for, it's not about giving your money away. It's about running a business but doing good while you're doing it, or running an ethical business perhaps. And it is a number of things. It is a movement, an association of like-minded companies, and there are now thousands of them worldwide. It is an objective, audited measure of things about how companies react with their stakeholders, employees, neighborhoods, communities, the environment. So it looks at all of those sort of triple bottom line things, and it assesses you. So you can go online and do a B Corp self-assessment today, cost you nothing, and you will get a score. So
Hmm.
it'll take 2 or 3 hours to do it for a typical business, for an owner,
Jeez.
and they'll say your score is 30. Right, to become a B Corp, you have to score more than 70, or at least that's what we did when we did it in 2018. And once you get over that threshold, so you have to do things to incrementally improve the score. Once you get over that threshold, you then apply to them, pay them some money. They come and audit you, and they say yes, you are now officially a B Corp, and this is your score. And that score is published on a website, a directory, so anyone can go and look up kind of in each of the categories what you got. And then you get re-audited every 2 years, so you have to
Wow, that sounds like
maintain
a
that standard.
tremendous amount of work. It does. It seems like a nauseating amount. Like you're signing up for someone to audit you. That sounds horrible.
The audit took us a day of, well, let me back up. We recertified. I think it was earlier this year, and it took probably a couple of weeks' work to prepare all the documents and to prepare for
Unreal.
the audit. And then we had several hours on the phone with the auditor. So it was a pretty thorough exercise, and we had to she would ask. We answered this question. She would ask for can I have a copy of the policy for that, or can I have breakdown of your salary details, or can I have can you send me the receipt for the carbon offsets? So
It's
they
it
are
sounds it sounds like a
difficult.
prostate exam for a business.
I don't know what's his op. But if it wasn't hard work, if it wasn't audited, anybody could claim it, right? So it meets that standard that you're setting out of being objective and publicly verifiable.
I
Yeah.
mean, look, listeners, uh, articulate marketing. I mean, they're going the extra mile. I'm not doing that. I didn't do
Oh,
that. And honestly, hearing it right now, I have like no desire, zero. That sounds like so much work. And so, for those of you that maybe didn't know about it, turns out that a B Corp, it's like it's like a degree. You hang that on the wall. It's something you're really proud of, right? But the thing
yeah,
is,
it's something we're really proud of.
yeah, that's right.
It's and it helps us with our staff and our recruitment, because there are definitely people who want to work for a company where they made a public commitment to those values. It helps us with our business because we talk to prospective clients, and there are quite a few clients out there that are B Corps or are becoming B Corps or who want aspire in that direction. And so it's a badge of honor for them that we're to have us in their supply chain, and they know that we've ticked all these boxes.
I,
We
I
were working with a big multinational that sent us this big audit, supplier audit. Like, do you do this? Do you do that? We just said, look, here's our B Corp score. Go away. And they were like, fine, you passed. We don't need to test anything else. So it has it. We didn't do it for the commercial benefit, but it has commercial benefits.
Well, it clearly does. I mean, and that's the other thing too. I think if we enter, or at least if I enter something cynically, or I look at it for the benefit that I'm going to get from it, then I don't have the staying power to actually get it done. Because if it's just a marketing initiative and you're like, what's my return on investment, as opposed to doing it because you believe it's the right thing to do, and you're motivated by the feeling that you're going to improve as a company. Because my understanding is that you have changed, that going through the process has changed your company, that you don't operate the same way that you used to, um, and in proving these things you kind of prove something to yourself, right? When she's like, what about this document, what about that, you're like, do we have that, do we have this, we actually do. And then it kind of restructures your own company, right, in a way.
Well, Chess World Scientist says he's enjoying, or she's enjoying, the shameless self-promotion aspect to Articulate. Yeah, I'm. It ain't bragging if you've done it. I am genuinely proud of the fact that we are trying to do this stuff. That we're trying to be a not only a well-run company, but a good company. Are we perfect? No. But what's the alternative, right? If you didn't really care about ethics and you didn't really care about that stuff, it would be a
Well, then
pretty
you would
small
be
world.
in the 90 percentile of people that just are alive today. I mean, like, I think you're suffering from some severe Dunning-Kruger. Are you familiar with the projection in Dunning-Kruger, where like really smart people will tend to project their intelligence on everyone else? And I feel like you have a high moral standard and you're projecting that onto other people, where it's
The
just
moral
it's
Dunning-Kruger
it's
effect.
that's right.
Mm.
It's not there. It's just not there. Like, it's a vacuum, a vacuous state. And that doesn't mean to say that other people are particularly amoral. It's just, when we look at our list, I think you've been very successful, and it's gotten you into a financial situation and a company situation where these sorts of things start making more sense. I think if it's Maslow's hierarchy of needs, right? If you're hungry, you're not thinking about a B Corp. You could care less about the stupid B Corp, like you're hungry or you're malnutrition or whatever that issue is. And then you move on to the next step, which I want to say is safety. If you don't feel safe, you're probably not in this world either. And so it's probably just a testament to your years of growing the business. And now I don't want to say it's a luxury, but if I'm being honest, it a little bit is, I feel like, and maybe you can argue
Yeah,
with me. It's a luxury to be in that position
it's
where you
it's
can go, we're going to go for the super advanced
yeah, it's in Maslow's hierarchy
recognition.
of needs, it's self-actualization for sure.
Yeah, bingo.
Um, but I would say, very broadly speaking, it's net zero cost. I mean, meaning we probably earn as a result of our positioning, our marketing from doing these things, what it costs us to do them, and perhaps it's a positive. But I would do it anyway if I could. You know, well, yeah, and I agree that the Dunning-Kruger effect is massive in business. Lots of people think that they know more than they do and are better at something than they are. Um, Especially if, and it's a real risk if you're the boss, right? Because you're surrounded by people who kind of don't want to tell you well, they don't want to tell you the emperor is naked, right?
Well,
They don't want to tell you
in
you're
my
stupid.
experience, they also want to tell you the good news. Isn't that funny how good news floats to the top? You ever get that? Hey, here's this good news. Meanwhile, all the issues and the problems stay hidden somehow. I've noticed that a little bit.
Well, yeah, maybe. I don't know. In my experience, people tend to shovel the problems uphill.
Ah!
All the difficult stuff lands on my desk,
They
and
land
everyone
on
else
your
gets
desk.
to do all the fun, easy
Well,
stuff.
the real problems, the
Yeah.
real funky ones, yeah. One of my favorite things, is when my employees come to me and they'll share something that's embarrassing, about just like a mistake they made. I love that. I always praise that. They're like, "You know what? Here's this thing that happened," and you can tell they're embarrassed. I'm always like, "Thank you so much for telling me," because 9 times out of 10, they could have swept that under the rug. No one ever would have known. Wouldn't have been an issue, but I really do appreciate that.
I there's a when I used to fly, I was a pilot for a while. That there's a whole idea in aviation safety, where you're not trying to put blame on somebody when an accident happens. What you're trying to do is understand what went wrong so you don't do it again. And they call it a just culture. And I think that's such a nice expression. It's always about learning and improving, and it's not about punishing and blaming. Of course, if someone's done something willfully or negligently or maliciously, that's a different issue. But most mistakes happen because of a sequence of cause and effects, and you can often prevent them. And if you want to see the effectiveness of that, there are so many fewer fatalities in civil aviation now than there were 20 years ago, 40 years ago, 60 years ago. Why? It's 100% because of a just culture of not blaming but understanding. And I think if you can replicate that in a business, as you have done by praising people for exploring and understanding when something goes wrong, I think that can be a very powerful engine for improvement. I really do.
Well, I agree with that, but I also have to say that technology has improved massively in the last 60 years, right? Can't you have to attribute some of that to just the
Well, for
stupid
sure.
machine flies itself, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Bob's up there,
The
he
ground
was
proximity warning system saved a few lives over
yeah,
the last
exactly,
20 years.
like,
Yeah.
did he drink last night? He did. He's a little hungover. No one knows that Bob just went through a divorce. He's feeling a little bit rough, but he's piloting the plane and thank God for that new technology because otherwise we'd be in the hands of a madman. I love chess world scientists. So, ladies and gentlemen, if you're unfamiliar, youtube.com/send it rising. Check us out on the lives. We're also on Twitch, LinkedIn Live, Facebook Live. We're all over the place. Anyway, he writes, "Good news equals a pay raise," and that's fair. I get that. For a lot of employees, they feel like they need to share the good news because they want to get paid. How do you deal with raises in your company? When do you do standard sort of X%? Do you sit down? You do performance reviews? How's that work for you?
Well, in the last year, we've put in a new system. We have a new CFO who's come from a big company environment and has made us grow up a little bit. So we do a detailed annual performance appraisal against goals
Wow.
and objectives,
Wow.
and your pay rise is determined in part by how well the company did, and in
Yep.
part how well you did. and we have a company scorecard that we update every month, so people can see the progress towards the company goals that determine the company side of it. And your scorecard, your goals, we have monthly one-to-ones with managers and their staff, and then this sort of very rigorous, formal, time-consuming appraisal process that we've just finished. The goal of it, I think, that's all I've talked about. Is
Ladies and gentlemen,
businesses.
hey, sorry, you got a little bit
Yeah.
glitched out there. Could you repeat that
Oh,
last sentence you said?
yeah, sure. The objective of this whole appraisal process is, one, everybody's individual objectives should be aligned well to the company's objectives. In other words,
Sure.
we should all be pulling in the same direction and not headless chickens.
Mhm.
And two, it should be really clear to them, and this is a work in progress, what they have to do to get more money in terms of developing their own career, learning and development, promotions, positioning themselves for the next job, meeting their objectives, exceeding their objectives. There should be no surprise when it comes to the pay review, because it should have been clear every day of the previous year what they needed to do. But living up to that it's a lot of rigor, and there's a lot of thought and a lot of process that goes into it. But I think ultimately it's fairer that way, and it's
Oh, you're
probably better.
crushing it. You're crushing it. Like, I can't every single thing that you say is a more mature version of what I do. You know what I mean? I mean, to be fair, there's an age difference here,
Yeah,
right?
I was going to say I probably have
So
a few years on
you
you,
know
right?
what I mean? I'm a young entrepreneur. I'm 38 for the record, in case anyone wants to know. People will always say, they'll always say, you don't look your age. Richard Fisk writes, nothing kills monthly productivity faster than mandatory meetings on productivity. I need to read that again just to understand what he's saying. Nothing kills monthly productivity faster than mandatory meetings on. Okay, I got it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Beatings will continue until morale improves, right?
that's right. Yeah, that's so funny. I do one meeting a day. It's 9:15. We're done at 10. It's 45 minutes, and then I love leaving people alone. You know, if I hire the right people, they're in their house, they can do whatever they want. Full autonomy. I mean, I'm what's the word? Small enough where that doesn't really, you know. I think actually our team is up to like 8 or 9 people. So I shouldn't beat myself up too much. How many folks are working at Articulate?
We're 18.
Oh, okay. Yeah, a lot I've got folks in Mexico, Jakarta now, we just hired in Jakarta. Do you have a hard stop at 11? Do you need to go?
Not a hard stop, no. At some point, it's going to be
No,
time for dinner.
we'll get you out of here. Yeah, we'll get you out of here. No, I just love these conversations. Anyway, let's summarize. So, articulate marketing, ladies and gentlemen, if you've made it this far in the episode, you clearly are super impressed. And Chess World Scientist says, Kellen, I know nothing compared to you. Matthew, quote, well, I wouldn't go that far, but I do have more experience.
I think you're misquoting me there. I said I was older than him,
I'm
not
pretty
more
sure he
experienced than him.
paraphrased. I'm pretty sure
I'm
Chess
53 to your 30, what,
Oh,
38?
okay, all right,
Yeah.
okay, there we go. We got his age out of him.
Age before beauty.
We pried it out of him. So what is that? 15 years? Is my math correct? 50,
Yeah.
yeah, something like 15 years from now. Then I'll see if I'm a B Corp and I'm lecturing some younger entrepreneur on the climate offset. No, it's so much fun to have you on the show. Listeners, I hope you've enjoyed it. I appreciate the comments more than I can put into just a sentence. So keep coming back. It just makes the show so much more fun when there's folks in chat. So I do genuinely appreciate that. Let's we've basically been pitching Articulate Market the whole time, but where should they go? Is it articulatemarketing.com?
It is.
Yep. Beautiful. And
And
if someone wants to reach out to you, how should they do that?
so on that site, if you fill in the contact form, they all come to me. I mean, they go to somebody else as well, but I'll see it if you mention this show, I'll pick it up. So yeah, that's the easiest way to get in touch. Also, I have a personal blog at geekboss.com, which folk might find interesting or not. Might be more
Geekboss.
evidence of the Dunning-Kruger effect.
I love that. Geek Boss. Yeah, buy a Chess World Scientist. We'll see you next time. Geekboss.com. GeekBoss.com. Articulate Marketing at articulatemarketing.com. If you enjoyed the show, youtube.com/Send It Rising. I'm doing a lot of shorts. I'm doing a lot of YouTube shorts, Instagram Reels, Facebook Reels, and they're really starting to take off. I'm actually, on average, I'm getting anywhere from probably like 5 to 8,000 views. And so if you enjoy short form video content, youtube.com/Send It Rising. You can check us out anywhere at Send It Rising, SENDITRISING. I want to make sure that our good friend Matthew, pronounce your last name?
Stibbe.
Stibbe. I asked you last time and I forgot in the interim. Matthew Stibbe. Check him out.
Call me Matthew.
Matthew. You know what? I'm memorizing your last name, whether you like it or not. Matthew Stibbe. Check him out. Google him. That's Matthew. You know how to spell that. Stibbe. Check out Matthew Stibbe. He's a great guy, and he can make your life better if you just listen to his content. Today is not enough information. Obviously, it's not enough time. So, Matthew, final words of wisdom for the fine folks.
I don't know. I feel like I've been lecturing enough, and I'm going to maintain a dignified silence at the end.
You know what? I love that. Ladies and gentlemen, thanks for swinging on by. Send It Rising. We'll see y'all next time.